Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to Soul Place. How a sleeping son of God may become an awakened son of God. Yet the fact remains that every human being, however wrong outwardly, is potentially a son of God. Even the greatest of sinners is but an awakened son of God, a sleeping immortal who refuses fully to receive his light by clarifying his consciousness. The ocean cannot be received in a cup unless the cup is made as large as the ocean. Likewise, the cup of human concentration and human faculties must be enlarged in order to comprehend God. Receiving denotes capacity acquired by self-development. It is different from mere belief. How the belief of being a son of God can become a realization. The sleeping sons of God who awake by following the law of spiritual discipline receive or feel God by developed intuition and thus regain their latent powers as Son of God. It is ignorance that prompts man to imagine his littleness and limitations. Ignorance is the sin of all sins. It is the man sleeping in delusion who acknowledges and emphasizes his dream of human weaknesses. It is wrong for belief itself limited by the body, instead of knowing itself as part of the unlimited spirit. It is good and right to believe that one is a son of God rather than the son of a mortal only, for it is metaphysically true that man is essentially made in the image of God. It is an error, therefore, for one to imagine that he is a perishable creature. Even by belief alone, one may gradually cultivate his intuitive knowing and someday realize his true soul nature as a son of God. Hence, a wayward child must start by believing this truth, as belief is the initial condition for testing and knowing a truth. When in trouble, one automatically prays to an unknown God and expects relief. If freed from trouble, even incidentally, he believes his prayers were heard and responded to by God. But should his prayer request remain ungranted, he becomes confused and begins to lose faith in God. Demand versus prayer. My purpose in presenting these sacred demands received in the course of my various fruitful communions with our Father is to enable my fellow beings to contact Him effectually. I prefer the word demand to prayer because the former is devoid of the primitive and medieval conception of a kingly tyrant God, whom we as beggars have to supplicate and flatter. There is a great deal of beggary and ignorance in ordinary prayer. People pray haphazardly. Few know how to pray and touch God with their prayers, nor do they know whether their prayers are responded to or not, or whether things happen unaffected by prayers. Nor do they distinguish between things that they need and things that they want. Sometimes it is very good that we do not receive what we think we want. A child may want to touch a flame, but to save it from harm, the mother does not grant the child's wish. God, though all-powerful, does not act unlawfully or arbitrarily merely because one prays. He has given independence to man who does with it what he pleases. If God were to forgive human shortcomings without consequences, it would imply a contradiction within himself, a disregard for the law of cause and effect as it relates to human actions. It would mean that he governs human lives not in accordance with the laws he established but based on his own whims. Additionally, God cannot be swayed by flattery or praise to alter the course of his immutable laws. Are we then destined to live without the intervention of God's grace and mercy, helplessly falling prey to human weaknesses? Must we inevitably face the outcomes of our actions as if predetermined by fate or so-called preordination? No, the Lord is both law and love. The devotee who with pure devotion and faith seeks the unconditional love of God and who also brings his action into harmony with divine law will surely receive the purifying, mitigating touch of God. Any sin and its consequence can be forgiven the repentant devotee who loves God deeply enough and thereby puts his life in tune with the all compassionate Lord. The best way lies neither in begging for favors or for amnesty from evil results, nor in being resigned and sitting idle, inviting the law of action to take its course. What is done by ourselves can be undone by ourselves. We must adopt the proper antidotes for our poisonous actions. For example, ill health can often be overcome by obeying laws of good health. But when chronic diseases and sufferings are beyond the control of human care, when the power of human methods fail to cure ills, physical or mental, revealing its limitations, then we must ask God to help. He who is unlimited in power, and we must lovingly demand as Son of God and not as beggars. Every begging prayer, no matter how sincere, limits the soul. As sons of God, we must believe that we have everything the Father has. This is a birthright. Most of us beg and pray without first establishing in our own minds our divine birthright. That is why we are limited by the law of beggary. We do not have to beg, but to reclaim and demand from our Father that which we, through our human imagination, thought to be lost. It becomes necessary at this stage to destroy the wrong thought of ages that we are frail human beings. We must think, meditate, affirm, believe, and realize daily that we are sons of God and behave accordingly. This realization may take time, but we must begin with the right method, that gamble with the unscientific beggary of prayers and consequently be subjective to disbelief, doubts, or the jugglery of superstition. It is only when the slumbering ego perceives itself not as a body but as a free soul or Son of God residing in and working through the body that it can rightfully and lawfully demand its divine rights. Deep attention and devotion are necessary. These sacred demands reveal a few of the attitudes of the soul that have met with successful response from God. However, it is not enough merely to demand in another's language. One should not rely on a book on love when he meets his beloved, but should use the spontaneous language of his heart. If someone employs another person's language of love while making demands to God, they must make those words their own by deeply comprehending and contemplating their significance and infusing them with utmost focus and love. This is like a lover addressing their beloved using the words of a renowned poet, but imbuing those words with their own unique love and sentiment. Mere repetition of demands or affirmation devoid of genuine devotion or spontaneous love reduces one to a praying Victrola that lacks understanding of the true meaning behind its prayers. Grinding out prayers vocally and mechanically while inwardly thinking of something else does not bring response from God. Repeating a demand of prayer over and over again mentally or orally and with deepening attention and devotion spiritualizes the prayer and changes conscious believing repetition into superconscious experience. Repeating a demand with deepening concentration and faith reaches God. Demand unceasingly and you will receive. After sowing the demand seed in the soil of faith, do not dig it up now and then in order to examine it, or it will never germinate to fulfillment. Sow your demand seed in faith and water it by repeated daily practices in demanding rightly. Never be discouraged if results are not forthcoming immediately. Stand firm in your demands and you will regain your lost divine heritage and then and then only will the great satisfaction visit your heart. Please like the video, subscribe the channel and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching.